online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning is Charles Thomas, former ABC7 political reporter.
Yep,
that's you. That's you. And Charles, the Kamalanomics plan, it's real. Not just the price controls to combat price gauging. Yeah, I want to say it right. Mm-hmm. But also this remarkable proposal that has been ridiculed every other time it's been brought up, but not this time because obviously we have a serious thinker who's promulgating it now. I'm talking about the unrealized capital gains tax that Kamala suggests she wants to impose. And by the way, the idea that that's never going to happen. Oh, that's not constitutional. There are a lot of things that are never going to happen that happen. There are a lot of things that are unconstitutional that are backed by the force of law at present. So I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss ideas just because they're ridiculous. We live in increasingly ridiculous times. And remember the left's position as so nicely articulated by the head of the Human Rights Campaign, a Kamala ally. We need to be more revolutionary than what the founders wrote in that little piece of white paper. So enter Kamala econ advisor Bharat Rama, who was on CNBC with Joe Kernan and Becky Quick to defend said proposal.
Well, unrealized gains, taxing unrealized gains just doesn't seem fair in any sense of the word. In the very best sense, if you are taxing unrealized gains, all you're doing is pulling forward the taxes that would be paid later when someone actually sells the stock.
I think that this reaction to unrealized gains is a little funny, given that I bet that the majority of people watching right now are already paying a tax on unrealized gains. It's called a property tax. When the value of your home goes up,
it's a use tax.
When the value of your home goes up, you pay higher taxes, even if you don't sell your home.
Your value of your home never moves the way a stock moves, the way something else moves.
That's always the go-to answer.
It's also, property tax is a use tax. You're paying for the schools, you're paying for emergency services. Those are things that make absolute sense.
And sure, and all the revenue that comes in from these unrealized gains taxes and the other taxes in the Harris plan are going to go to creating what she calls more opportunity. It's to make sure that every newborn born in this country gets $6,000.
Using the services.
Well, look, you're arguing that this is some sort of foreign concept that's completely unknown in the U.S. tax code.
It's probably unconstitutional. It's probably, and it was never in anyone's intent to tax.
It's not an income tax,
and it's never going to happen. Probably. Not I'm not going to say my lifetime.
I wouldn't say that.
Not in Becky's lifetime. Yeah.
I wouldn't giggle about it. I do share Kernan's exhaustion with this trope. We already pay unrealized capital gains taxes called your property taxes. I think Becky Quick did a pretty good job of responding there. For more on this and other matters, financial, pleased to be joined by Christopher Whalen, investment banker and chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, also the author of Ford Men, From Inspiration to Enterprise, and editor for The Institutional Risk Analyst. Chris Whalen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning.
So you want to take a whack at the unrealized capital gains tax proposal?
Well, it's aspirational politics. I think Becky did a great job pushing back. The left in this country has, left the bounds of Earth. They will propose anything that they think will get them traction with voters. And since half of all voters are basically living paycheck to paycheck and don't have a lot of money in the bank, it is more appealing now than it has been in the past. I'm in the middle of editing my re-release of my first book, and, this last 15 years has been really strange. Nobody would have imagined some of the proposals that have come Democrats shouldn't surprise you that they're coming up with such crazy ideas, because this is just where they're headed. You saw it with Kennedy when he endorsed Trump. He said, my father, my grandfather, and my dad was a biographer of Joe Kennedy, would not recognize this party because of the ideas they keep espousing. So, I think Kamala is going to force everybody in the country, everybody in the business community to oppose her. That's essentially what she's doing, because she's so far out there that even a left-of-center business person is going to have trouble supporting her.
So, I mean, just to give us a little bit of a scenario from your perspective, I mean, if a unrealized capital gains tax was passed, say, I think she's proposed 21%, 15%, 10%, 30%, whatever, what would the consequences be?
I think you would probably see people selling. I also think it would increase the tendency for wealthy Americans to move offshore, simply because they can see the writing on the wall. If you're a very wealthy person, you're probably already shopping for offshore domiciles to shelter you from the craziness in American politics. Real historians know that we've had periods of very intense socialism in this country, and I think we're heading back there. If you think about the early part of the 20th century, the 20s particularly, we had some really nasty socialists. These were the people who ended up teaching the likes of Barack Obama and others. So it's not like this is new. It's not. It's just that it's come back in the age of affluence, in the age when we can borrow money endlessly, or we think we can borrow money endlessly, right, Dan? Mm-hmm. But no, this is going to come to an end. We're one bad Treasury auction away from the wake-up call. It's like we're all asleep right now having this really strange dream, something out of the House of Dragons or something. And now the bell's going to ring, and the Fed will have to buy an entire Treasury auction.
I'm starting to think that Elon Musk might be onto something, and that we're all in one big simulation.
Yes,
I
totally agree.
I can't. I'm like poking my hand to see if I really feel it.
But there's such a difference between the perception of people inside Washington and the rest of the country when it comes to economics. It's striking.
Jared Bernstein's still trying to figure out why the government borrows money in the first place. Biden's top economic advisor.
Well, it's like an 8-track tape. It goes round and round,
But, and I'm not here to flack for the uber wealthy, because they got plenty of flacks. But the idea that you can run from this, where exactly are you going to run to? And by the way, they will chase you when you run. California, Kamala's home state there, I mean, they were kicking around an exit tax to chase you down for essentially clawing back money you made while you were in California when Art Laffer moves.
New York too. Yeah, New York is headed in that direction.
Of course they are, and then they'll impose a federal wealth tax. I mean, is everybody going to live in Bermuda or the Antilles? I mean, at some point you have to stand and fight, I think.
I totally agree with you. I'm not going anywhere, but Hamilton is very attractive to many people.
Yeah,
it's U.S. law. It's not one of the crazy islands down south. It's actually a respectable venue. Mm-hmm. So. You'll see more and more of that. But I think ultimately these things come in cycles. This is the end of the baby boom party. It's like a 40-year-long keg party on the beach. And now we're kind of done, and we're going to have to figure out a way to run the country in a reasonable way without world wars and other kinds of disturbances. I remember Freeman Dyson, who I got to meet a couple of times at Princeton, used to say, we're really good at replication, but we're still working on metabolism. And I think that was one of the more interesting insights I've ever heard about economics.
Yeah, we're at the end of this keg party, and Annette Funicello looks like hell, Chris. I mean...
But you know what? I have hope because, I'm a Trump supporter, and I think that Kamala Harris, who does not exist politically, she has zero political image or, recognition in this country, And I think she's going to basically campaign herself into a defeat. They really, the media is so skewed, as you know, Dan. But unfortunately, the left cadres who follow Kamala, they listen to the media too. So they don't know about immigration. They don't know about inflation. They don't know about the cost of housing. These are the three issues that will decide this election. It won't be reproductive rights, and it won't be any of the rest of this nonsense. $25,000 for a starter home. That's not going to move the needle. That's not what people want to hear right now.
150 if you're an illegal immigrant in California.
No, but she is gonna force the entire business community to run against her. If she really goes out with taxes on unrealized gains, forget about it. Forget it. The corporates in this country, believe it or not, still have a lot of power, and people like Warren Buffett still have a lot of power. That's why they started ordering Kamala around. Remember that one guy who had written her a big check and then ordered her to fire the head of the FTC?
Yeah, right. well, yeah.
That's crony capitalism. I wrote a piece about this for American Conservative years ago. So.
Well, no, I mean, Chris Cuomo's moment of clarity on the floor of the DNC last week where he's pointing up at all the corporate suites they paid $500,000, $1 million, including the corporate media, to have these suites, to have access. So you have these new Bolsheviks like Comrade Bernie and everybody else railing against the billionaires and the corporate titans and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, they're literally looking down at them like Caesar, watching it all play out. And the joke is on anybody who doesn't see the rent-seeking, the cronyism that you're talking about.
Well, no, precisely. These are... if you think about it, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but most big companies today are run by managers. These are people that don't generally have large equity stakes in the business. They didn't start the business. And likewise, on the left, you see these functionaries, these little paper pushers who go to meetings and, give press conferences, but they have no substance. And I say this as someone who has worked in finance during the Biden administration. I have interacted with all the major agencies in Washington that do money, and they are largely incompetent. I really say that honestly. They don't understand what the hell they're talking about. So sooner or later, they're going to crash and burn, Dan. That's it. God help us if Kamala wins. Oh my God!
Well,
this is going to be scary.
That was a pretty close approximation of Gecko's Teldar paper rant. Not bad. But what about folding in Tim Walz to the conversation too? Don't forget about Coach Walz. It's fascinating. The worst governed states in America, the states that are performing the worst economically, are the breeding ground for national politicians for this new Bolshevik party. Minnesota ranks 46th in the nation for per capita GDP, 47th for job creation. Pritzker was a finalist. Illinois is the worst in the nation in everything. California is maybe a tick ahead. New York, Kathy Hochul was seen and heard from. I mean, this is their bench. This is their all-star lineup. All the people who lord over states that are dumpster fires.
Well, nothing's changed. You recall Al Smith. How many times did poor Al run? And similarly today, they didn't have a candidate other than Biden. And now Kamala Harris has been thrown in there. But think about the fact that even though the Democratic Party is run by bosses, just like the Republican Party used to be a century ago, right? These people still can't organize themselves to pick a decent candidate who's in his 40s or 50s. They just can't do it. It's really quite striking if you think about it. It's not just the states, Dan. As a group, they don't have any acceptable, attractive candidates.
Yeah, it's like the Illinois Republican Party, Charles.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Maybe they should put Kamala in a wheelchair. That would help. It'd be just like Franklin. But Franklin was so conservative compared to these people. I keep thinking about Robert Kennedy's comments. It's night and day. These aren't just European socialists. They're to the left of most people in Europe. And that's why I don't think they're going to do well at the polls. I really don't.
RFK Jr. is an interesting figure. I mean, he says a lot of things that that I agree with, and I think that are pretty good insights. And of course, he's been on the inside of this for a long time. I don't, go fully down the path with him on certain issues, but I wonder what your take on him is from a business perspective. Not a big fan of corporate America, as you well know. And to the extent that he is more than just a figurehead on a Trump transition team, but it has any influence in a Trump second term. What's your perspective on that?
Well, he's clearly turned off by big corporate America, which is not hard to do, especially if you focus on healthcare and related issues. That is not a pretty picture. But at the same time, we don't yet have a consensus among conservatives to use antitrust. We keep thinking, we can't, contradict the great corporate titans. No, yes, we can. There are a lot of combinations out there that are driven by private equity that make no sense. And then later we see the destruction and the detritus from the collapse. How many companies have we seen gone bankrupt after the bankers have taken all the capital out? I have a problem with that. So, I think Robert Kennedy has some interesting things to say, but it's not 100% a conservative message by any means.
No, understood. Yeah, just was curious. Christopher Whalen, investment banker and chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, author of Ford Men from Inspiration to Enterprise, and editor for the Institutional Risk Analyst. Chris Whalen, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a great holiday, guys.
You too, and he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, this is Eric, the CEO of Ultimate Tax Group. With my 2 decades of experience, I have helped thousands of hardworking American taxpayers like yourself. If you owe back taxes to the IRS or state, or have any unfiled tax returns, personal or business, never give up. My team and I want to help you take your freedom back today.